So thank you everyone for being here with us today at Earth Action Hub. And we welcome Stephen and Kanyi from Kenya, Nairobi. They will share with us an incredible project they have created by themselves with their own power. And I always find it very inspiring to listen to them, and they're my new heroes in life. And I look up to them for what they're doing. We also want to thank Susie Banscon and Peace Brigade UK for making this conversation possible. We're very grateful, Susie. Thank you. And Stephen and Kanyi, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. My name is Stephen Mwangi.
And my name is Kanyi Wyban.
And we're from Mathare, Nairobi, Kenya. And we're going to be talking to you about global solidarity, and especially from a community level. We're talking about community solidarity and how we see this building on ecological justice work, and how we've been able to do it from our small community spaces, and how we see this connecting to the global platform. I'll allow my colleague to start as well.
Yeah, so just to give a small background, Stephen and I have been friends for many years, sharing a common history, being both from Mathare, which is a huge informal settlement in Nairobi. So growing together, going to school together, and being part of the same generation of youth in Mathare at a particular time when majority of us are beginning to go to school beyond levels that our parents were able to go to. It brings us together in terms of having one common grounding in terms of circumstances that have put us to be where we are, and also in terms of the visions that are beginning to emerge from the current generation of youth in Mathare. So we do a lot of community work. We plant trees in Mathare, which is attached to a lot of the ecological issues, environmental issues in Mathare. But mainly we wanted to talk about how this work of planting trees teaches us to be resilient, because there's many circumstances that have led to even the need for imagination to go around our issues and to design new futures. Yeah, so today we're going to base our conversation mainly on how we remain resilient and how we continue to do it through the little work that we do around our environments.
Yeah, maybe I can take it up from there. And this work is based on our understanding and our experiences in the community. And just yesterday I was mentioning that ecological justice work is an existential, it's something existential reality for us. It's something that we came and found happening in the community. We found that there are already problems of sanitation. There are problems of lack of access to sufficient water. There are problems of garbage, reckless garbage dumping. And this kind of reality allowed us to start reflecting and thinking, how other neighborhoods, how other places, other countries, how do people live? What is dignity in those places? And when we talk about resilience, it's really thinking about what do we need to experience in our lifetime? How do we need to live? And the work of seeking dignity, not just for ourselves as individuals, but for community, for the country, has been a common reality for us. As Wyban has shared, we've grown up together, and it's not just us. There's so many other people. And I'd say that's the beauty of informal settlements, that you're grounded from a very young age, so many of you, and together. And we've tried to take that to be of value when we meet up and we think about education. And now we every Saturday, a day like this, we have reflections. And these reflections are around the kind of realities that we have. And we think about, as Wyban has mentioned, planting of trees. And when I mention a tree, I'd like us to reflect about the resilience of a tree. A tree is planted, and at some point, it becomes a shelter. It becomes more of a refuge for someone. When it's very hot for you, you can go under a tree. And the growth of a tree goes through so much, and one has to do so much to ensure that the tree grows up to full maturity. And when we began, the strength of a tree and the resilience of a tree is what we kept reflecting on every Saturday. And at this point, we've been able to plant around 1,000 trees. And I'd say this has changed even the view of the community. When we're beginning in our neighborhood, there were no trees. You wouldn't look up around and you see any single tree. And this beat us down. And a mentor joined us, and we set out that goal. We said we're going to plant 10,000 trees. Now we're at 1,000, and we believe we can get to 10,000 trees. And as I was mentioning during yesterday's opening ceremony, we don't just plant trees for the sake of, say, beauty. We also plant trees to continue our own lives and to continue the lives of those that we've lost. And this idea is based on the fact that we live in a community where there's so much police brutality, and we've lost so many of our friends that we went to school with. And these trees give us that spirit. They give us that motivation that no matter how much we are marginalized, we can still be able to imagine a future for ourselves, even beyond this physical life, that we can continue living even after a police officer has killed you or has killed someone else. And I'd like to go on towards the issue of hope. And for hope, I'm not just talking about hope in my own community, about global hope and the need for us to think of other parts of the world that we've not seen, other parts of the world that we've not visited.
Mm.
And this is because the entire world is affected. If there's a global crisis, there's an environmental crisis in Europe, it ends up affecting other parts of the world. And for us, we live in a community where there's no factory, there's no industry. And our rivers are polluted. They're polluted with chemicals, they're polluted with polythene papers. And they end up clogging in our own rivers. They end up clogging in our own community. When it rains, all this dirt, all these chemicals flood our community. And we've kept thinking, how do we change things? At this point, there are groups that we are working with to rehabilitate the river. And it's very simple, easy work. Someone who has a hammer, someone who has a wheelbarrow will come with it on a Saturday. We take out the polythene and we expand the river and dig it a little deeper. So I'd say from anywhere people are in the world, that they can continue their small actions, and these small actions can impact an entire globe. So maybe let me pass it on to Wyban.
Yeah, the work itself is also a work of rebirth. You know, it's young people and community people wanting to birth their environments and have them fresh and anew. Yeah. So the seeds, the trees that we are really planting, physically are just trees, but really it's more of seeds of hope that we're planting. You know. So Stephen yesterday mentioned the concept that guides us, that drives us, that he called the Mathare Futurism, which is basically us wanting to imagine possible realities, wanting to imagine new futures, and the futures that we imagine are obviously futures that are punctuated by different conditions from the ones that exist right now, with the river being largely polluted, with garbage sites, illegal garbage sites, just being situated next to where we live, becoming health hazards. So those are the realities that we have at the moment, and for us to really change that, we have to imagine something different. Yeah, and I feel like in general, when we are thinking about climate action, it's really the need for the globe to exist as a community and together to imagine a new future for the world. So on a community level, we have these young people coming, being artistic in their nature, and imagining a better environment for Mathare, an environment where there's no garbage where we live, an environment where the river is rehabilitated to its original state. And therefore, one thing that teaches us um, to rebirth that environment is the tree. That the tree would provide that shade, but further than that, would also provide fruit, and feed community members. The tree would provide medicine, and offer natural healing properties to community members. And also the tree, as Stephen has said, is our way of also retaining our memory, saying that we refuse to just die and be forgotten, which is something that attaches a lot to other structures of violence that we face in Mathare, that we're having this environmental crisis, environmental injustice, but it's attached to many other forms of injustice. We have now a lot of young men dying to police violence. We have so many people dying to things like illicit alcohol, and all these many things that are attached to also how people view themselves. When Stephen mentioned dignity, it speaks a lot to the fact that how the environment is right now, filled with trash and all that, impacts and influences a lot of how we see ourselves, how much dignity we have for ourselves, how people view us, even outside our own neighborhoods. So for us to reclaim that and reclaim our own dignity, we have to change our own situation. We have to go to the root problems, to the root causes of the issue. That police violence would be one issue that we face, but what influences this violence? What's the role of these many players? And for us as a community, it's on how we see ourselves, and how we see ourselves, it's on how our environment looks like. So for us to plant trees is beyond just reclaiming this environment, but it's also attaching it to many other issues that are internal, that are psychological, and that are spiritual. Yeah. So,
I'm not sure how we're doing on time. Oh, great. So yesterday we also had a great reflection with Wyban, and it's a reflection that we've really been having when you're thinking about reclaiming our own dignity and reclaiming our own environment. And the conversation is about global capitalism. And I'd say global capitalism is what has brought us to this kind of reality, a reality where young children have to think about running away from the police so that they can stay safe, an environment where chemicals are flowing in our rivers, and a system that has made us to worry about our own future, to worry about next week, to worry about next month. And I'd like to say that we can really reimagine and we can reflect from a global perspective to think what kind of economy or what kind of system or what kind of life do we want for ourselves and for our children. And I think when we start thinking like that, then we start thinking, what does the earth want for us? Why are we on earth? How can we live sustainably on this planet? And when we start thinking like that, then I believe we will dismantle the structures of capitalism. We'll start rebuilding our homes in a way that is sustainable, that does not degrade the environment. We'll start thinking of ways that we can continue our lives, ways that can sustain our own our own food basket, ways that can allow us to educate our children, and not in a manner that is extractive, but in a manner that is productive for them. So for us, we are not in a situation where we have a choice. We don't have a choice of choosing what do I want to learn and what school do I want to go to. We are in a reality where you have to live in a way because you've been structured to live that way. And when you choose not to, you are forced to do it. And those who rebel against that system have been killed by the police. And this kind of suppression, this kind of choking is something that we're fighting against on a day-to-day basis. And at this point, we've been able to establish a social justice movement. And this social justice movement is a coming together of victims, coming together of political activists, of researchers. So there's room for everybody in such a movement. There's room for everybody. When we start thinking of what does Mother Earth want of us. And we follow an ideology of education, of organizing, and of liberation. And when I say education, is educating ourselves about our past, our present, and reimagining what kind of future can we. And on organizing, it's thinking, whom do we need to be in this cause? Who is committed enough? Who's willing to be with us and to join hands with us towards liberation? And liberation for us is not a decent job, is not a big salary. Liberation for us is freedom, is a life of dignity, and is a life where we are not worrying about our future. And this kind of liberation can be realized at a global perspective. And why I say global perspective is because no matter how much we fight and struggle in Kenya, it won't be of great impact if the whole world is colonized. If the United Kingdom is a free world, but Kenya is colonized, then we still have the same oppression being moved towards that side. So let's educate ourselves at a global level. Let's organize ourselves at a global level to end towards global liberation. So, well, I usually have a lot to say, but for me, I'd like to leave us with a reflection from Wangari Maathai. Wangari Maathai says that we do our small things from wherever we are. And if we can encourage everybody to do small things from wherever they are, we can be able to create a global impact. We can be able to create a global solidarity that is going to bring down the structures of this kind of system. So I'd say that's it for my end.
Yeah, and as Tivo talks about the little thing, it's important to not forget that everyone has a little contribution they can make in this fight, and that's why we're even having a conversation like this with friends from around the globe. That just acknowledging that everyone has a little voice that they can make, and just combining all these efforts to overpower the silences, you would say, to a lot of global issues. On a community level, we make the most of every little voice and every little effort by bringing together, as Stephen has said, community activists like ourselves. We bring together artists to also talk about these issues and make their contribution to the fight. We work with the immediate community, with the kids, in terms of reimagining the future and just making a better future for the children. And we work with the kids in many ways. We'll teach children to set up a tree nursery and how to nurture the tree nursery. We'll work with the children to even think about composting. Yeah, given that our neighborhood is surrounded by a lot of garbage, how can we find long-term solutions to this garbage problem on a community level? So when we start thinking about composting with the children, it's something that it becomes a solution that outlives any of us who are right now engaging in the fight for environmental justice. Yeah, so it's really just acknowledging all these players and their little contribution, community leaders, but also acknowledging our past, which Steve was said very well, that we have to acknowledge that past, work with it to understand the present situation, and then now use that knowledge to imagine a different reality. And the past for us from Mathare has been a past of environmental apartheid, that it dates back to the colonial period, to post independence, where land was mainly divided based on class, and that has been brought to this day, that people are still divided based on their class, and where you live is determined by where you are economically and socially. So a neighborhood like Mathare is surrounded by other lavish neighborhoods, and it looks more like it's segregated to the corner, and therefore neglected. No sanitation is done by the government, and therefore solutions for such an environment would have to come from that community, that immediate community, understanding its deepest problems and finding its most important solutions. To a solution like a land issue where we live on majorly squatter land in Mathare. We've inherited a situation of not having an ownership to your home. So we're people who are essentially born homeless, in the sense that we don't have a place that we can really claim is home. Where we claim is home, we're told it's quota land and we can be displaced anytime. So the only spaces we have a claim to are what we share as community land, and also that is further taken away from the community by private investors. It's taken away from the community by even religious institutions, and children end up having less and less access to community spaces. So for us to plant trees is also a way for us to reclaim these public spaces, these resources that we share together as a people. It becomes a solution for our own dignity, it becomes a solution for our environment, and it also becomes a solution for us and our claim to our own spaces. So I'd like to also leave it at that, and leave the floor to you, Paula, for questions.
Thank you, guys. I have to say you're truly inspiring and really amazing for what you are achieving with very little. One question from our participant is, when you find yourself in a position where you have nothing and you have a lot of issues to deal with, where do you find this incredible inner power to make a difference, to overcome your personal issues, to also help your community? What did you, the two of you, find this power within yourself? How did it happen? Thank you.
Well, for me, that's a very good question. And it's really a question again to all of us. How, when we find it ourselves in a world like this, I mean, it's really crazy. Sometimes I feel like we don't deserve this, but we have to do it. So for me, I'm really inspired by Ken Saro-Wiwa. Ken Saro-Wiwa is from Nigeria, and his problem was the problem of environmental degradation, and it was being done by a huge corporate. And it's not just say Nigeria, it's all over. And another one is the Kenya Land and Freedom Army, that they were found on their own land. They were displaced from their own land. They were killed for fighting their own land. But they kept the spirit, they kept the struggle. And there's so many people who've come before. I realized myself while growing up as a young child. I'd feel like this is not right. I felt at that young age that things are not right, because I'd see other children while we are moving into the city and see that they are happy. I'm wondering where are they happy? For me, I'm hungry. I am underclothed. I am not sure what we're going to eat. And it's not just me. My friend Wyban and so many others living with so much uncertainty. And this kind of thinking, this kind of reflection was allowed. My mother will talk to me and I'd ask her tough questions. And I'd say education is really great. And I still think we should keep educating the world, but now not in a system like this. We need to reimagine education, because if enough Kenyans or enough Africans are able to understand their history very well, I don't think they would agree to live like this. Yeah, and I feel like if the entire world would really reflect from a point of collective education and collective reflection about their own past, to feel that past, I don't think we would agree to live like this. There's so much that we will bring down. There's so much that we will deconstruct. But the system is also constructed to make us not understand our own past, and in that way not understand our present, and definitely not care so much about our future. So I find my strength and I find my motivation from the political activists, the people on the front line of struggles that came before I was born in the 1940s and 1950s. And beyond that, not beyond Africa, I think of people like Malcolm X, that they were born to slave parents. They were born in an environment where they're thoroughly unwanted. But they found a way to inspire us to this day. We think about them when we're organizing in the movement. We think about Marcus Garvey when you're organizing in the movement. And these are people who are born in very tough conditions. At least here I am around people that I can call my friends and family, but we don't have the economic stability. But at least I can say I am with my people, and I can struggle with my people. So when I think about people like Marcus Garvey, I feel like I have no reason to complain. I can only struggle with whatever past that we've inherited, and build a stronger future for ourselves. And it's now we're thinking of ourselves as global citizens, that I can be able to interact with people and we can reflect together, and they're in all these different parts of the world. Then I see that our past is collective. It's just for all of us. It belongs to Paola, it belongs to Susie, it belongs to everybody wherever they are. So it's not really this struggle of mine, it's a struggle of all of us. So Dedan Kimathi fought for Paola, he fought for someone else who's in Mexico, so that they can think or they can believe that it's possible to struggle against the worst and the most extreme of systems. So I cannot give up and I can never relent. And I'm very happy that even with all this past of oppression, that there is still people who stood up and they were courageous and they died for that courage and for that struggle. So that's my motivation.
Well, thank you very much, both of you. You're truly very inspiring, and we're so pleased that you have found the time to be with us at Earth Action Hub today to share your story and also your wisdom. And we hope to do more together in the future. And so thank you, both of you. And we invite everyone else here today to explore more of Earth Action Hub, more conversation, more talks, workshop, forum, networking. Just go out there on Earth Action Hub and explore more, because that has a very interesting and inspiring stories to come. So thank you again to everyone for being here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shukran. Right.
Inshallah.
Bye.
Thank you.